Alright, everybody, it's the next day, and I did find out that there is supposed to be a liquid gasket or a forma gasket. Some people might use RTV. It's fairly similar, except this is a slow drying type of gasket material. I was actually advised to use this from the local shop here in central Minnesota, so that's what I bought. So what I have done is I have gone ahead and put the forma gasket around the both halves of the crankcase, and I went ahead and put in the seal for the other side here. I'm going to go ahead now and put a little bit of oil on this seal. I got my torque wrench out. It's supposed to be 18 to 20 foot-pounds for these crankcase bolts. And this is kind of a, I guess you could say this is kind of a time constraint issue, which is why I went ahead and did some of this stuff off camera. You don't want it too sticky, and you don't want it too hard, I guess, just to make sure it seals correctly. And I've just gone ahead and put a little bit of oil on the seal there so it doesn't do a dry startup. Again, I have no idea why leaving this half went gray like that, leaving it in the parts washer. But let's go ahead and get this, get the crankcase sealed up here, and then we can move on from that. I watched another guy on YouTube that was working on the exact same engine. He didn't split the case. Now, I split my case because I wanted to make sure everything in here was exactly the way it was supposed to be. So I didn't want to have to take this apart again, and hopefully that's where this will end up, is not being taken apart once I get it all sealed up. Now there's two pins that are built into the case, one on each side, and once those pins get set into their there we go, they're starting to fall into place now. Of course, pop out a little bit. Well, that looks good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and get the case bolts. Everything's already been cleaned, and I don't really see a whole lot of difference. There's tiny difference between the heads, but they're all marked the same, so I don't think that's a big issue. I'll just take these two that have a slightly different head number, or not head number, but head shape, and I will run these all down. Take these two at the top here, and the other three can be at the bottom. It looks like everything's going down good except for this one here. It feels like there's a little tension on it, but we'll find that out once I run the torque wrench down on it. Alright, so This is supposed to be done 18 to 20 foot-pounds. I just chose 20 foot-pounds. And we're going to get that set from there. And then the next step will be to get the cylinder on. Now, when you're torquing something down and you don't have whatever pattern it's supposed to be, the best thing to do is not go around like that. It would be across in a star pattern. That way it gets the load dispersed as you're going down. That's strange. That bolt is not sinking as far down as it's supposed to. So let's try to get this done in a timely fashion, because this former gasket's gonna harden up. Wow, okay then, they are different lengths. So that's strange, but let's see if it's supposed to go together like this. Maybe they're supposed to be in these corners. I can't exactly tell if it looks like there's a difference in height. But it looks like there is some sort of difference. Well, let's find out what's going on here. I suppose I should have reviewed the footage to see if there's a plate or something that goes in here and sandwiches these down. What I will do though is, since I'm not sure about these two yet, I'm going to go ahead and at least get these three laid down so it tightens that crankcase. Sometimes this is what happens when you forget where things go and you don't do what I keep harping on, which is document. I should have probably taken some pictures, but I didn't. I relied on the video, which I haven't reviewed. So being a triangle, I don't have any kind of a way to do any kind of star pattern. And just again to double check, I don't know if you guys can see all the numbers on there, but it is set up for 20 foot-pounds. You got the 20 right there and the marker at the very bottom with the 0. It goes up in 1 1/2 pound increments. So we'll at least get it set. If I have to pull the bolts out, then I'll have to do that if they have to come out to go somewhere else. But seems like quite a bit of torque for this little aluminum case. Well, there's that one. That's what you're looking to hear, is that click. That tells you that it's at the torque that it's supposed to be. right. So, now that that's taken care of, feel a little bit better. Not so hurried, knowing that the case is put back together. Now, you don't have to do what I'm doing. I'm just kind of like to have things clean and some of that gasket sealant squeezed out. I'm just trying to rub some of it off, but it's not working so well. Maybe if I take this little towel here. And my nose is running because it's cold again in Minnesota. 2 weeks ago it was 80 degrees. And now it's 50. And in a day or two, we're going to hit about 30 degrees overnight. When our seasons change, our temperature changes. And it happens rapidly. Alright. Anyway, now the case is put together. Whether the correct bolts are in the right area, that's yet to be found out. However, the next step is to put the cylinder on. And what I'm just doing here is cleaning off the excess material here, because there's actually a gasket that goes here around the bottom of the case. Everything seems to be turning freely and good. So first we're going to start by checking the rings. Now the rings have obviously spun because they're right next to each other. So now we got to find out where this top ring is supposed to go, which I believe is supposed to go, yep, okay, so there's a pin down there. Maybe if I make a mark on the cylinder, on the piston head. All right, so it seems like there's always something slowing me down on this project. And this is not anything different. So, going to put the cylinder on, and there's only 3 out of 4 nuts. I looked and I looked and I looked and I can't find it, which means I'm going to have to get another one. So, it's Sunday, hardware store's closed, no chance of getting one today. So we're just going to get as far as possible. I'll get the cylinder on here and get a couple of the nuts down to hold it in place. And then I'm going to have to go to the store tomorrow, I guess, and get a single nut. I thought I should have bought more today when I was in there, just in case something stupid happened, but I didn't. And now something stupid happened, and I'm short one. All right, so anyways, in here we got the exhaust pipe gasket, head gasket, cylinder base gasket. And that's what we're working on right now, is the cylinder base. Now these gaskets, I'm just looking to see if there's a top or bottom, because sometimes there is. I'm not seeing any markings on it, whether it's top or bottom. So, as you can see, this is a certain shape, and this is a certain shape. So, sometimes things just line up the way they're supposed to. And this will go over the piston and down over the cylinder studs very carefully so as to not tear this gasket. And there we go, just like that. Next thing is we're gonna mark the piston, so I have a reference point of where the pins are. Because this is only going to go down in one spot. Alright. So I just put a line on the piston here where one of the piston pins are. And there's another line that gives me a reference point so I can make sure that the piston ring is in the correct location when I go to put the cylinder on. So let's go ahead and get that done. Now, cylinder is quite heavy. I did not bother honing it because I see there's quite a good crosshatch in it already, and I didn't want to create any loss of compression. I know on a car that honing cylinders is good and everything, but because of the unsureness of this engine, at this point I'm choosing to skip the hone. Now that may come back to bite me, but I don't feel like honing it at this time. And if that causes me future problems, it does. But I think just by looking at the cylinder walls the way they are, I think they'll work. After all, it did run with a blown head gasket, so we knew it run. Alright, so now what you're looking at here is this can also only go on one direction. We have the carburetor that's at here, and the exhaust that was on the other side of the engine. So it went down like that. So we had the carburetor that was on this side and the exhaust pipe that was on that side. If they were both on the same side, nothing would fit together. So what we're going to start by doing is looking at my reference points here. And I'm going to ever so carefully squeeze on that piston ring. And that's down the first one. And I'm looking at the second one now. And now I'm giving the second one a little bit of a squeeze. The second one's fighting me a little bit, but it's not going to win. There we go. All right. So now, oh boy. Yep, that's the problem. Look at that. Piston ring broke. It's a good thing I saved my other ones. Now, I'm not very happy that that broke. I'm not sure what happened, why it broke, but it broke. So we'll have to use the other one and hope the other one's in good shape. That's why you really gotta be careful as you possibly can be, and we'll give it another try. All right. So, looking for my piston ring pliers. There they are. It's the first week in October in Minnesota. We basically have just over 2 months before the nightmare starts again, which is snow. That snow wheeler that I showed you guys earlier, I finally got that licensed, so that's in my name. And if we actually get snow this year, which I doubt we're going to get much because this is an El Nino year, I'll have that ready to ride. The point being is I can't keep working on this golf cart. You know, it's causing me a lot of tiring grief and whatnot. I have other projects and other stuff I want to show you guys. So if this doesn't get handled soon, if it doesn't get running soon, I'm just going to have to cut my losses for the year and go on to other things. And if there's time later, then we can get back to this. But for now, it looks like, you know, just one more thing, a lost cylinder head nut, and now we have a broken piston ring. This cart is just fighting me every step of the way because it just seems like it does not want to run. So, take two. If this breaks, I don't have any. Well, I suppose I do have one more piston ring. But if I can't get this cylinder on without breaking rings, I'm going to have to try to find out what the issue is and move on to something else for now because I have way too many things to handle before it snows to be dealing with this craziness. So, take two. Start right here. Got right past the first one. The first one popped out a little bit. All right. Past the first one. On to the second one. Look at that. Got it. Now, you gotta be careful setting this thing down that you don't mar the gasket. Don't pinch your fingers. Even just holding my hand over here, it feels like there's good suction and good compression. Now, am I concerned that I have two different rings on here? A little bit. However, it was the bottom one that broke. Your top ring is going to be mainly for your compression. Second one is for compression also, but also for oil control. So, having a good top ring is what's more concerning for me, and I have that. This, after all, is just to get this cart running. This engine is quite small compared to what there is now. I would much rather have a nice bigger engine, something about 2 or 3 times the size, which is actually what's on the golf carts now. And the ones that are on the golf carts now are also not 2 strokes. They're 4-stroke engines. And so having a 4-stroke engine, you don't have to mix gas anymore. All right, so I'm not going to tighten these down yet, because I still need another one of these. And if I can't torque it down correctly, I'm going to ruin something. And I can't torque down 3 and then come back and torque down the last one another day. So, with that being said, maybe we can move on to the head. What I need now is to take the head gasket out. All right, so here's a brand new head gasket that has not been crushed and maimed and blown apart. Goes right on top of there, just like that. And then the new cylinder head, or I should say the refurbished cylinder head, goes right back up on top of there like that. So I don't see any, for this particular head, I don't see any directions, any directionality on it. It looks like everything's the same all the way around. We got threaded portions on both sides of the head, so that's equal. The cylinder head top is equal, so it can technically go on either way. Go on that way or that way. Both the same. So, what we're going to do is we're going to clean this surface up just a little bit. There it is. What I have here is a typical wire wheel, but this is brass. You can kind of see the yellowish to it. This is brass, so it's not going to harm the surface as much as a steel wire wheel would. And I'm just going to lightly clean the surface up here, make sure all the previous gasket material is gone. Looking good. because the last thing that I want to happen is to put a new head gasket down and it doesn't have compression. Alright, so looks like this is pretty good. Set that aside, and I'm going to do the same to the cylinder. Now, because the cylinder is steel, I can use a little more pressure. All right, there's that. So now, if you look at the engine, let me take a look here, because trying to remember, that was like that. This had the pulley, this side had the fan. And I think it was set up like that. I'll go ahead and review all the footage later tonight just to make sure, because honestly, without getting that bolt or that nut, I'm kind of, all I can do is kind of just dry set this up. So this is how it would have sat in the cart, just in this position. Right side of the cart, left side of the cart, forward, backwards. All right, so the head would sit like this. It wouldn't sit like this because there's no need for these holes like that. Now, I could be wrong. I don't believe I am. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry fit this in this direction, because it should just be hardware and accessories that was bolted to the side of the head. The best thing is the case is sealed. That's what was needed. So we're going to start here. Now, if you remember, there's two different types of bolts for the head. And that I remember specifically which ones went where. I don't remember why I remember that in particular, but I do. All right, so because I remember the mounts. Actually, it was sitting like this. In which case, I think this actually sat in that direction, like that. So, yeah, that looks right. All right, so what we're going to do here is finish putting in these 3 longer head bolts. Just kind of wobble it around here until it goes down where it's supposed to. Then we'll take the other 3. And all this hardware has already been cleaned. like I said, this is all just being dry fit. I'm not going to tighten anything down until I get that one nut for the cylinder head, because there isn't any point in tightening anything down until I can make that happen. I imagine that's going to require me going into town again tomorrow, which I don't want to do because it's a long drive and I don't want to waste my time. My biggest irritation in life is wasting time. I'm not sure what yours is. Feel free to let me know in the comments. But for me, time is everything, especially on a farm. You don't have the luxury of having free time whenever, because you have things that have to be done when they're supposed to be done. All right, so since we have an idea about this little intake for the carburetor, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get the reed valves and the gaskets for that, and we'll put the nuts on there. Alright, so I'm assuming it looks like those 4 nuts that are on the table that I was wondering about is probably for the carburetor. Alright, so this is a reed. This is what you have on two cycles. It allows air to flow through in one direction and one direction only. So it sits on, the air goes in this direction and it blows these little vents open like so, and then they close so nothing can come back through the carburetor. All right, so now we got 2 gaskets like you're supposed to have, which I didn't have before. And go ahead and just clean the surface here. Don't need oil on here if we can avoid it. All right, so we'll take the first gasket, because the reeds function in a certain direction, the gasket sits in a certain direction. I'm just trying to see which way that was. All right, so it looks like it was oh boy, this is what happens when you order cheap parts. Now, is the gasket right? Yes. Are the holes not exactly in the right area? Yeah. All right, so that's the right gasket. It's got the little dimples right there. But the holes, as you can see, don't line up. It's supposed to be further down. So that creates another problem, is that I'm going to have to notch out the bottom of these gaskets. So, is it a problem? Yeah. Can it be fixed? Yeah. It's just a time-wasting irritation. So, I'm going to start by just looking at the gasket to begin with to see if it'll fit on here correctly or not, and no, it's just not even close. Alright, let me see what I have here that I can possibly take care of this with, because this has to be done precisely. Alright guys, I was going to use a hole punch, or I have a leather belt punch, and make the holes a little bit further down, but I'm not sure where that leather punch wandered off to. So I'm just gonna have to use a nice sharp pointy little scissors and open the holes out a little further down. It only needs to go down about 1 millimeter for the hole to be in the correct position. So you can see I opened it up a little bit further. I don't know, you know, this is, I hate to say it, this is what happens when you have to get parts from certain countries because they're not made in America anymore. Quality control is just not something that's in their wheelhouse. Alright, almost there. Looks like I just need to open it up just a fraction more. The one thing you don't want to do is tear your gasket, because then you're back to square one, starting all over again. Now this one looks like it's gonna be tight, but it'll be on there, and that's all that matters, is the gasket gets on to where it's supposed to go. I'm going to be very careful using the screwdriver here, kind of show you guys here the best that I can. Just kind of trying to push the gasket down just a little bit at a time to get it to set. Then the reed can go on. Got to be very, very careful with gaskets. All right, let me go ahead and work this on a little bit further here. It sure would be nice if we had quality control like we used to, but we don't. So things go out of whack, and that's just the way life is. And you can see I'm just kind of pushing the gasket down till it gets down to the bottom where it's supposed to be. Then the reed goes on. Now, you can see that this is only gonna go on in one direction because of this little valley right there and this little curve right there. If you went to put it on wrong, it wouldn't go on. It would stop because it can't go any further down. So the curve goes with the curve. It's just that simple, just like that. Now we got one more gasket. And it's quite obvious this one's going to be, yep, and this one's going to be wrong too. So we're going to have to take and open this up a little bit. Was out at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival last weekend. It's the best Renaissance festival and probably the biggest Renaissance festival in the country. If you ever want to take a vacation, come here and go to our state fair and go to our Renaissance Festival. They're the best in the country. There's nothing better. And you will be pleasantly surprised and have a great time. I hate leaving the Renaissance every time. I love going there. I hate leaving. It's such a wonderful place, and I would love to actually live there. All right, look at that, right down. Cut this one out a little bit better. So now we got gasket, reed gasket, and then we got the, if you want to call this an intake, it serves that function, and that would go on just like that. And that way, when this is on its side like this, the carburetor is right here. Now, got a bunch of hardware right here. What it looks like I probably have is the 6 that go right here and the 2 that go right there. I didn't clean any of this because I didn't get to it. I would prefer it clean, but this thing is so wonky now that things aren't exactly right. I guess that's not super high on my priority list anymore, but I'll just rub most of the crud off that I can get off. Now this I can tighten down. This also has no torque sequence or spec. Only certain things do, like the cylinder head, the cylinder itself, the case, and the clutch and the fan. So those will get torqued down to the specs that they need to be torqued down as. I really hope I have the right tool to torque the head down, or I mean the cylinder wall itself. As you can see, there's absolutely no room in here to get a socket, so it's got to be what's called a crow's foot wrench, which will have to be on the end of my torque wrench to be able to get in there. So I hope I have 9/16. I hope I got a 9/16 crow's foot, or it's gonna be a problem for me. All right, get that down there. And probably just get these nuts on here. I don't really want to go any further until this is tight with putting any of the accessories and stuff back on. And I still haven't figured this problem out yet. It's more than apparent that there's certain holes that they go into. I just don't understand why it's not sinking down right. That should go all the way down, but it's not. It's just strange. I'll try it again though. Yeah, see, it's sinking out right there. That is so odd. I wonder. Oh, yeah, that's what it is. It's this right here. It's this plate. Now that's why there's a difference in bolt length. Alright, so that problem's been solved. I'm not happy about having to back this one back out, but that's just how it's going to be. And this would have been the mount for the starter generator. It's not going to go that way because that would be with the carburetor. So this plate obviously goes just like that. So what we're going to do is grab a socket wrench. Don't ever use a torque wrench as a socket wrench. You'll throw the whole shit and shebang out. Alright, so this is something that is not, you must be very careful doing stuff like this. Once it's torqued down, you have a good chance of causing more problems with things coming back apart. So if you can avoid a stupid mistake like this, avoid it at all costs. Alright. So what we'll do here is go ahead and get this bracket on. If these things will even ever back out enough. Okay, so now thread that in just like that. And I'll take the socket wrench here and just run these down, and I'll torque them once they're bottomed out. This is what happens when you don't prep for what you're doing. I guess I'm kind of violating my own way of doing things. I'm just in a hurry. That's all there is to it. I'm in a hurry, and you shouldn't be in a hurry when you're doing something like this. Otherwise, you're going to make mistakes, just like I have. But at least I figured it out. So now they can be torqued correctly. And then that just leaves that stupid nut that's missing. If I could only find the other one that I lost originally, everything would be okay. Double check my torque wrench. I don't know why it's not locking. It should be locking, but it's not locking in place. I mean, it's kinda, but I'm not willing to spend $500 on a torque wrench. All right, the case is in place. Now, I wonder, everything's back in place, the pickup's in place. I wonder if I should just go ahead and put the damper back on. Got a bunch of dirt and crud in here. You know, keeping your stuff clean and in proper working order is the best way to keep longevity of your items so they don't break. Just maintain them. That's all it takes, is to maintain something, and it will last darn near forever. And I don't have my other phone out here to give me the torque specs for this, so unless I want to go back all the way back up to the house, this will probably just be another dry fit item. As you can see, there's a notch in there, and there's a key right here on top of the shaft. That will tell it where it's supposed to be. There's an offset eccentric ring here that matches up with the pickup coil to tell the engine when to fire. And this is basically fixed timing. I never took this ring off that holds the pickup, so everything has been, well, nothing has changed, so there's no reason to worry about timing on this. Alright, so there's that. And now we got the lock washer and the nut. Strange that it's such a tight fit. It looks like, I don't want to say it's backwards because the nuts aren't backwards, but for some reason it's going on this way and it wasn't going on the other. Sometimes things are just like that. It's weird. I don't see a washer down here, so I'm assuming it was just the lock washer and the nut. There is a torque number for that. There's a torque number for the clutch on the other side, of which I don't need to do yet, just because I'm holding off on the cylinder. So we got the two lock washers that go to each stud here on the cylinder. We've got one nut left. We're missing one nut. Got the damper on. Got the intake on. All this needs to be tightened down. And soon enough, this will be ready to start up. Let me see here. This was the plate that went on this side over here. Let's see. And I don't know if you guys can see this. This plate has witness marks on it. This kind of has like a little D stamp in it. That is evident of this right here, where there's a little D formation in the casting. So what you do then is you don't need to worry about, is it going on the right way? Because it's going on the right way. And that would mean it goes on just like this. So I'm going to go ahead and back these out. So so I can put this on. The more I can get done right away, the more I don't have to deal with once I get another nut. For the head. And then we can get the engine in this thing and get it to either run or park it, or one or the other. This thing has just been a thorn in my side, and you guys are probably way tired of watching it because I have other things that I would much rather show you. The problem is this nightmare is taking up my garage, barn, my barn space. And it shouldn't be. There's other things that go in here. That is a 9/16. There's other things that need to come in here and get worked on. Okay, now I have the right side. I mentioned earlier when I started this that this engine is a mix of standard and metric, and it's a mix of standard and metric, because this is a 1/2 inch, but I think this is a 13, which is just a fraction smaller than a 1/2. But they're similar in size. Of course, that wants to spin. Let's see. Maybe I can get away with this using a wrench. All right, so the starter generator mount is set. These are going to be 10 millimeters or 13/32, either way. That's what we need to get this job done. Except for that one there, which is going to be a little bit of a tight squeeze. Looks like I might have a little thinner extension that might help to take up some of that slack there. Yep. All right, so when you're working on a small engine and you don't have torque specs or don't know them, your best option is just snug. Now, some people's snug to other people's snug is going to be different. My version of snug is I tighten it down until it stops and I can't turn it anymore. I'm not wrenching, trying to get it super tight, but I'm turning on it like this and I can't get it to turn anymore. To me, that's snug. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and put the carburetor on just yet. I'm going to wait till it's ready to be put in before I put the carburetor on. What is that? What a mess. This is where the fuel pump goes. I suppose I should have cleaned this before I put this plate on, but sometimes you forget. And I don't have anything better to put in there. Guess that'll have to do. I think I'll wait to put the fuel pump in too until it's close to being ready to go in. All right. Kind of hard to get compression when nothing's tight. All right. So we need to tighten the cylinder head and the cylinder. Those two are tight, those two are tight, those four are tight. These 5 have been torqued. That leaves torquing the dampener, then putting the fan on the dampener, then the cover on this side. And then we'll basically be ready to drop her back in. All right, so with the lack of proper hardware, I'm gonna call it for tonight. I'm gonna go get one tomorrow, and I will see you guys all back tomorrow, and we're gonna get this thing finished up and running. All right, have a good night.